Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming to this webinar. I'll just start with a quick introduction about myself. So it's a Scilife webinar. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Scilife. I see that there are customers, but also non-customers in the call. So what I'll do is just to give a very brief explanation of what Scilife is about. So it started out as a QMS, a quality management system, but now it's much more than a QMS. It has grown by adding more and different modules to the platform. It has grown into a life sciences platform that helps life sciences company handle or manage everything related to quality, but also product and process, right? So that's how we differentiate ourselves from other QMSs. We're very, very focused on life sciences, and we will always continue to do that. And we're growing the platform to add more and more solutions to the platform that that are interesting for the life sciences sector. That's what Scilife is about. With me today, I have Patrick Lamplé. Patrick is a senior specialist solutions architect for healthcare and life sciences at Amazon AWS. Thank you for being here, Patrick. Maybe you can do a short introduction of yourself.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Philippe. Very happy to be here. Yeah, I'm a specialist solution architect, as you said, specialized in this health industry, healthcare life sciences. I'm having like 15 years and plus experience in this domain. I was in the business side of the industry. I was managing data architecture, clinical trials data, doing master data management and advanced analytics and machine learning in this space. I've also done a lot of innovation activities in life science and also in healthcare. And yeah, I joined AWS about 2.5 years now. And my role is to help the customers in this industry, which is already very challenging, to understand how AWS can help them innovate at scale and with the security. And so I'm very happy to be here today, and thank you for the invitation to talk about this very important topic, how we can do innovation and having the security that we need, because we're touching a very sensitive domain.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's also very important for us to have a company like Amazon as the best-in-class cloud provider come on a webinar with us to chat about this, right? That's really also the goal of the webinar. We want to have this chat together around data security and data integrity overall of cloud-based solutions or software as a service solution. Like the one Scilife is, right? So we've often gotten the question, is it safe enough nowadays to acquire a software as a service solution that is cloud-based within this sector? How are you dealing with the shared responsibility? How are you dealing with security? And all these questions that we have been answering over and over, which basically are responses from the vendor side, right? Where we just ensure the customer that we're doing things correctly. I think it's very, very interesting to hear it also from the cloud vendor perspective, to give the life sciences company an idea of what's the current status of security of these cloud-based services in combination with the companies that provide a cloud-based solution on top of those services. So just a quick note on the structure of the webinar. This is the format. This is what we're planning to do, to have a chat together. That doesn't mean that you cannot ask questions. So questions are always welcome. We will go as we go through the chat. I have many questions for Patrick. And Patrick can also obviously ask questions to me to know how we do it at Scilife. But you can also ask questions to the both of us. We will try to just pick a few out of the list. Any questions that are not handled within this call, this webinar today, will then be followed up afterwards over email. So don't worry if your question is not answered. We will do so later, that's for sure. All right, so just to kick it off, right? Maybe Patrick, you can explain overall, how is security, which is one of the main concerns of companies that acquire such a solution in the cloud? How is security handled within AWS? Can you explain around that a little bit?
Sure. So in AWS, what we say is that security is our job zero or the top priority, if we say more in the European culture, because customers are using the platform and they do a lot of things with it. It's healthcare industry, life science industry, it can be finance, any type of industry have a lot of obligation, but very sensitive one, very regulated one. And all these customers expect the highest level. And in fact, as I said, in AWS, it's our top priority. We have world leaders, top experts in this domain that are looking at and monitoring the platform 24/7. So every time. And it's part also of the culture. It's not someone's job in one team. It's everyone to take care about security. It's really, that's why we say it's our top priority. We don't compromise on this part. The way we do it and the way we approach it, as I said, is a part of the culture. So the way we build the services, the way we build the capacity, what we call in AWS regions and availability zones, so where you have the servers and all this kind of solutions is really meant to be built in a very secure way, and also because we are in regulated industry, there's a lot of certifications, guidelines, white papers that we provide. So we are audited by third-party auditors about how secure and how we comply with all these regulations, and we also, it's very important, we help the customer achieve this security. We secure our part, we want the customers to secure their part, and so we help a lot in this space. Yeah, that's something we will deep dive today in this discussion. But really, what I want to say here is that every part of what we build and the services and the way we help customers to build their solution and and monitoring what's happening and be transparent about this is at the heart of how we engage. Yeah. The interesting part for customers is that they can get the questions from everyone from a different industry, and so you get this insights from everyone, and we try to raise the bar in terms of security. We're continuously innovating in this space. Security is not something you check and it's done. It's something you put as a mindset, and we know this in GXP approach.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we know, right? Because we're also always collaborating with Amazon, AWS to keep up security on our end, to use the services in the most secure way. Are we using best practices? Because it's a huge infrastructure that is constantly evolving. You're adding services to the platform. So it's a constant, definitely a constant evolution on both ends, both at Amazon, but also for us. And this collaboration between the cloud vendor and your customer, which is us then, is very, very important for us. We notice that on a daily basis. But then very concretely, right? People might say, this is all very nice that you guys collaborate so well and that security is part of the culture. We get that. But if servers go down, data gets lost. Who's responsible, right? Who do we call? We're not going to call Amazon. We're not Amazon's customer directly. We're going to call, in our case, Scilife, right? So how? Yeah, of course I know that. I know the answer, but I want somebody from Amazon to explain it in a better way, right?
And it's a very concrete question, and thank you for asking, because that's something we share with the customer and with the partners. Is part of the shared responsibility. We make sure in AWS that we secure what we propose to the customer. So the way we build the infrastructure, the way we build the services, the way we support and we show how to use the platform is our responsibility in AWS. But the way you use the platform yourself is on your responsibility. So maybe having a server down and losing data is something not important in your business. We don't know. You decide what you want to do with it. So what we say here is that, okay, it's not our fault. No, we help you understand these aspects. As Werner Vogel, our CTO, says, everything fails all the time. Don't expect, crossing your fingers very hard, that nothing bad will happen. It can happen, and obviously it will happen at the worst time for you. It's never a good time for that. So we help customers and improve their vision in this, and make sure that what they build is aligned with their business business needs. And we do risk assessment in GXP, and it's part, is it important I lose this data, if I lost this data or not? If yes, you probably need to think about backups. You probably need to think about checking that your infrastructure is working efficiently. And we help the customers with what we call well-architected framework, thinking about how to do good architecture of your solution. But also we help thinking about the disaster recovery business continuity plan, because that's what we try to convey here. And especially in this industry, there's very few cases where you say, we don't mind if it's failing or if it's down. So we need to think about this, and that's a very important point. And in fact, back to you. In fact, Philip, in Scilife, I'm sure you have a disaster recovery and business continuity plan for your solution. So maybe you can give us on your side of the shared responsibility how you address this part.
Yeah, definitely. Before I answer that, what I see here is actually quite interesting. So what I noticed is that Amazon has all these services, and they have to try to find the balance between something that is useful and configurable, and then how you bake in security. We actually have exactly the same problem, or we need to find that same balance. It's not a problem, but it's not easy to find a balance. We have this Scilife platform helps companies work according to regulation. So there are a lot of things that happen out of the box, specific workflows, electronic signatures. These are there, and you cannot circumvent them. These happen. Audit trails. You cannot edit audit trails, obviously, right? So, but then customers sometimes ask, it shouldn't be possible to put the same person in two different roles, right? It depends, because there are scenarios in which it's very handy to have the same person sign off in two separate roles for a particular document or whatever. So for us, it's also hard to see up to what extent the platform forces you to work in a certain way, and up to what extent it's really your use of that platform according to your regulation to make sure that you comply. And we also notice that in Amazon does a great job to have redundancy out of the box for a lot of their services. For example, S3 for cloud storage, right? Object storage. But for example, for RDS, for the database data, it depends on our configuration. If we have a master slave setup, if we do automated backups every X amount of time, how long the retention is, that is not something that you're going to dictate to us. That is something that we need to configure. We need to document that it happens in a certain way, right? So yeah, it's interesting. So we have these three stakeholders: cloud vendor, then Scilife, and then our customer. And the customer, there is actually a fourth, right? Our customer probably has their own customers. So on all levels, we need to have this balance set up correctly. Just to answer your question in terms of DRP, of course, we have a disaster recovery plan to make sure that redundancy is in place, that everything is documented, that we have separate tiers within the platform with tiers. Yeah, we don't want to make this a very technical chat for only IT people, right? I know that most attendees will probably QA type of people. So I don't want to go too much into the technical aspects, but the fact is that the DRP helps us to outline and document how the system is currently set up, which services we use, in which way, what's redundant, how backups are done, where these are stored. And then what we need to do is, if something fails, we need to have a plan, a disaster recovery team. We need to have a recovery call tree in which we know exactly how to escalate the issue so that systems get back up and running. So we do that in different phases. We have an activation phase, we have a recovery phase, etc. Right? So all these things are documented, and this is then tested on a biannual way to make sure that we also try to see if our plan to recover a copy of a database actually works according to the documentation, right? So all these things are then handled in this disaster recovery plan. Communication notification system is in place to notify vendors, to notify all the customers. All these lists are kept in our quality management system because we are the users of our own product, obviously. So we have procedures. We have the templates and the lists in order to do that in a very organized manner. So yeah, that's a little bit about the disaster recovery plan. Another question is regarding data protection overall, Patrick. So how can AWS help on the data protection side? Can you help explain that a little bit?
Sure. So is part of the same trend you mentioned. It's part of what you need to achieve, and it's part of your obligations. And by default, we propose services that are promoting security. So you have to opt out to remove encryption. You have to really not follow our best practices to say, I don't want to protect the data. So by default, that's what we promote. But that's the feature or the service level element. What is important is how you behave, how you will put this in part of your culture. And as you say, one of the big questions currently for everyone, and because we are touching, especially in this domain, very sensitive data, I call it health data, ultimate privacy. It's important to be sure that you have the protection of your data. So there's two sides. Again, there's the AWS side and the customer side, as you mentioned. For data protection, we have a lot of resources, in fact, and we are continuously improving, evolving these elements technically, but also in the practice. Especially in Europe, for example, there was a lot of question around the data privacy, around Schrems 2 and all these elements. And so we continuously publishing new resources, so blog posts, white papers, guides to help your answer the question about data protection. And in fact, when you talk about security and especially in the cloud, there's two things. There's education. You need to understand how the cloud changed your business, how you can scale up and down, how you can innovate faster, and at the same time control what's happening. So this is education on what can happen. And also after you have the let's say the detailed security discussion, and that's where data protection resources we're providing help you really ask you the right questions there. How do I manage the GDPR obligation? How manage these elements? But on AWS side, which is usually customer questions, how is it secure to put the health data on AWS? Yes, it is, and we show you how we do it, how we protect the data, how you can rely on certification, how you can rely on best practices, our service terms, and all these elements. We update this continuously to the customer.
Just as an anecdote, to just make a quick incision. Sorry to interrupt. Right?
No worries.
But I remember in years ago, in a far time gone already, we actually tried to commercialize a LIMS solution, a laboratory information management system, in the clinical studies space, maybe like 10 years back, right? As a cloud-based solution. And there we noticed that it didn't work. People wanted it on premise, period. So we couldn't build a SaaS business around that, because the acceptance was not great. The laboratories were not confident or okay with storing patient health information within the cloud. So basically, they said that regulation was not ready for it, and also there were two sides to it, right? One thing is regulation, but even if you can find a way to comply with regulation, then there is the market aspect in which they might say, even if we achieve to do it like this in your tool, there might not be market acceptance. So our customers might not be okay with it, no matter what regulation says, because they are simply not feeling confident that we're doing it correctly. So there's no deal. I think that in the last decade, that has really changed, that perception and the possibilities of storing that type of data in the cloud. What are your experiences with that within Amazon?
Yeah, that's a usual situation. We have say, oh, you cannot do better than what we do in premise, and we have best experts. And fine. In fact, we can prove you that we can be at the same level you're doing it on premises. But what we see with customers is that we usually improve the security posture. Why? Because security is such a large topic. You need to have experts for everything. You have so many things to do, and AWS is helping you simplify. We do the undifferentiated heavy lifting. So building trails, audit trails, building your event-driven approach. You do that in few hours, weeks of work in AWS compared to do it internally with all the elements, and you need to check what you've done and review everything. So usually what I see is with customers that they try to challenge us, and we show that we are at least at the level and even better in the practice. And what is important is not only feature checking. It's not saying, can you do that? Can you do that? It's how do you do that? How do you daily approach this security? And that's why I started with this culture. It's very important to have this in mind. And as you said, can you prove that it's more secure on your solution than what you can do on AWS? That's a good question, and say why you think it's better, and let's see how we can go there. But
exactly.
Really, again, we are building new services and new features every day on security, and all services have security elements. So there's not like it's something for this solution or for this team. It's everywhere because it's important. We try to make this part of daily life and make it easy. Easy doesn't mean not very important. It is important, but focus on what is the business. And as you say, the business specificities are important. You should focus on what is your core activity, your core knowledge, your core value, and not to try to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. And so the way we deploy services, the way we help customers deploy services, like doing a checking of the container, checking of the code, improving the performance, improving their security, do penetration testing, all these elements, is something that usually is a project in the team that is not focusing on security. Here, you can really automatize a lot of this. And the way we build services, we have a very good builders library where we have our principal engineers talking about how we build our services, how we scale billions of servers, containers everywhere in the world at scale, and keeping the security. And so that's a very long discussion and very interesting. But it's where we can show and help customer improve. I really believe that it's important for this industry to automatize things that are not of specific value. So things that you do all the time, and focus on innovation. We've seen that a lot with the pandemic. So security should be something you take it very seriously, and we take it very seriously. So let's work together on that.
And you mentioned it, right? The key is really ask yourself, what's your core business? Is it setting up a data center and managing the data in a secure way with redundancy? Probably not, right? I remember a big pathology lab that had two complete buildings that were a mirror of each other, with all the big buildings, 2 stores, right? Which were a mirror identical, with all the data mirrored in the other. With 200 meters in between, airport next to it, right? You think, okay, that's a huge cost. The best you can do in that limited space that you have. And they already tried to do it at a very big level. You need all these experts, you need all these people to manage all that, the cost of the buildings, the cost of the servers, the infrastructure, and you will not get to the level of having several data centers in different regions in the whole country or over the whole world, and having redundancy built into your application from that perspective. It's a completely different league, right? Different. Okay, so if I get sorry, go ahead.
So just to add on this, and that's a very interesting topic. I encourage the auditors to look at chaos engineering, how you can test your environments when things that should not happens, and that's very important. And that's the way we put in the way we build the regions, the availability zones, so the group of data centers we're building. We think that we hope nothing bad will happen, but in case it happens, we are ready for that, and we think this way. So it's that's a very important topic. I think life science is already doing for some experts, but we should all get a lot of value from thinking this in this way, because it's valuable for the patients at the end. So
chaos engineering, I'll write that one down. That's engineer according to chaos, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so back to your data protection explanation, Patrick. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to what you already explained.
Well, it can be a day-long or a week-long discussion, but I really recommend customers and attendees to look at the AWS website. We have a blog for security. We have a compliance center where you can see that. We announce a lot of new elements currently on this. On the data protection, specifically also for regional aspects of data protection, worldwide, local. So yeah, it's continuously evolving, and we show that we do the great job for supporting the customer, also, and especially when privacy is very important. And one thing that I would like to ask you, in fact, in reverse, because it's we are providing the services, how you, in your side, address this topic in Scilife, how you address the data protection elements?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? Again, we have to do it on two levels. You guys provide the possibility to do it in a very secure, redundant, and compliant way. Then we have to use those all those services in the right way to actually be compliant. So that's what we do in essence, is to really isolate the data of each customer. So in terms of file storage, but also a database storage, so that we don't have one large SaaS database with all the data in there and we just reference by customer ID. That would be crazy, right? So every customer has its own production database, not only for production data, but even the test and the validation. They have a separate validation database. Everything is completely vertically separated from each other, even for those three environments of the customer, to make sure that that it's done in the most compliant way. Also in terms of file storage, we do the same thing, and then we use also the regions within Amazon AWS to make sure that the data is stored in the right region according to country or continental regulations. So that's how we do that on application level, so to speak. Okay, so yeah, another thing that people are typically worried about, to tie back into the security in relation to data integrity, actually, what we also do is to make sure that there are no security holes within our application. You already touched on it, or you mentioned pen testing, penetration testing. Every release that we do has mandatory an automated pen testing tool needs to be executed. A report comes out of that with showing potential security threats within our application. And that's also a very good basis to make sure that not only on infrastructure level and on data level we're doing things correctly, but our application evolves continuously too. We started out with just 5 modules years back. We've evolved into 12 module platform. We're adding more modules continuously to the platform. So and every module has at least 1 to or and sometimes 3 times per year a new release, because we develop and validate those modules separately. Every module has its own versioning, so we constantly need to put out releases per module. That means that every time, not only that module, but the whole tool is being tested with a penetration test solution to make sure that nothing changed on the security front and that we have everything in check to get to the high standards of security in that angle. All right, so I think it might be good to go to an attendee question. We're already half an hour in the webinar, right? So let me check. One of those questions that I saw passing by as we were speaking is, let me see, this one, for example. Yeah, customers typically ask if their data is encrypted. So yeah, maybe you can explain on the AWS level, and I'll explain again on the Scilife level regarding encryption.
Sure. So encryption is part of the customer decision. So by default, we suggest to encrypt everything. That's part of the best practices also in this domain. It's important to encrypt the data at rest, in transit, That's part of the usual thing, and having followed it. What is interesting with AWS, what we propose is that you can use the keys that you manage in your AWS environment. You can bring your own key, or you can also have your cloud HSM, which is a hardware security module that have a specific hardware encryption key created there. You can bring your own key, or also we have some situation when you do hybrid mode where you get the key outside AWS, so everything that passes through AWS is encrypted. So it depends on how you want to do it. What is your approach to encryption, and what you need to achieve there, and how far you want to prove it. What is very interesting is that if you're using the key management services in AWS, for example, all is audited. So the people or the role accessing the key at that moment is logged. So it's also a great way to say, the key was not stolen, or you can. And as it is an event in your trail, you can create a notification to your security officer if it's something that should not happen, or you can automatically remediate and block the accessibility, or rotate also your keys. So we help customer there, because it's a difficult topic when you don't have the services. We really look at this in this way. I guess you're doing the same kind of thing in Scilife.
Yeah, so all the best practices are implemented. You already mentioned key rotation. You also mentioned, encryption in transit and at rest. Again, these are maybe technical terms. In transit, for the attendees that do not know what it means, in transit means that all the data that travels between servers, or between the user and the application, or that data that travels within Amazon services, these are encrypted. So for example, to take it to the user level, right? You cannot log into Scilife over just an HTTP connection, which is unencrypted. It is always redirecting to HTTPS. This means that between your browser, because in the end it's a web-based application, between the browser and the Amazon server, the connection is encrypted. And then once we go to, for example, backups or data storage, everything that can be turned on in terms of encryption is turned on within the service at Amazon, which means that also at rest, so the data that is not moving, that is stored at some place, is then stored in an encrypted way. If something would happen, data is stolen or whatever, the person could not really do anything with that data, right? That's in the end or if you would be listening into a connection between the user and the servers, or somewhere somehow within the infrastructure, you would see only just garbage going back and forth, because it's all encrypted, and even if you would be able to copy that, it's useless. So that covers it probably on the application level. Anything else that you think might be worth mentioning that I didn't mention, or?
Yeah, I think there's it's again, security is innovation all the time. We are using a specific hardware and software solution in AWS called Nitro. So you can have so it's encrypting, creating by default encryption without impact on performance on the connection between the hardware, but also the elements. We also announced it's available, the Nitro Enclave, so you can decrypt your data to process only in the isolated, no human access, no software access environment. We also push new instances with memory encryption by default. So all these elements is improving over time, and making sure that you can raise the bar and not waiting for an issue to say, we might do something more. No, so it's continuously evolving and simplifying this part. It's very important to understand that is also based on the discussion. I think with Scilife, at Scilife with your customers, you have this discussion what you want, and adapt this over time. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Maybe another attendee question that I saw passing through here is how do you deal with backups? So yeah, that's probably more for me than for you, Patrick. So yeah, we use the backup. There are basically two types of data, right? We have the file storage, any file that is uploaded to Scilife, or any file that is generated by Scilife in terms of reports or downloadables or whatever. So those files are stored in what they call S3, the S3 service of Amazon, which is what they call object storage. The particularity of S3 is that it's highly redundant. In other words, as soon as the file hits or is saved in S3, it is automatically replicated over, I think it's now 4 geographically separated data centers. Correct, Patrick?
So it depends on the region. So usually we have 3 availability zones, so data centers that are so far enough to be complying in case of this. Yeah. But S3, you have a replication in 6 different in the region. You have 6 different copies of it to make sure that you have the high durability of your data. It's 9/11, so it's 99 and 9/11 after that. Of durability. So
wow, yeah, which is something that you cannot have on premise or even with a secondary or a third location. I mean, we're talking about 6 geographically separate data centers, and this comes out of the box with S3. We didn't even have to configure it, right? I mean, we save the file there, it's automatically replicated in different data centers. So that's on the file level. Then we have actually the database data. What we do there is we always have a master-slave setup. We have separate databases for the test environment, production environment, and validation environment. And then, for example, for production, we have this master-slave setup where we also write data on two servers in real time to make sure that if one data store goes down, we still have the other one, right? Additionally, what we do is to make a backup of the whole database of the customer every 5 minutes with 30-day retention. And this is also mentioned in the contract. So according to contract, we have this backup scheme in place. And through the disaster recovery plan, we test if the data is recoverable twice per year to make sure that this is not only just a feature that we turn on, but it actually works for us and we know how to do it. So that's on backup level. Yeah, there is this other thing that we turn on, which is called multi-AZ. In Amazon, maybe it gets a bit too technical, right? But it has to do with the regions to make sure that data is not only stored and backed up in one region, but it's split over, or it's copied and duplicated over different regions to increase the durability of that data that is stored in the databases. Patrick, am I saying something that is not accurate?
Yeah, no, globally it's fine, and it's it's not durability, it's high availability. In fact, in case you have an AZ that is not, an availability zone that is not available for any bad reason, worst case scenario, something happened, you still have a copy somewhere else, so you can switch automatically to the secondary database, and so you keep your continuity, business continuity. There. We have even like global database architecture where you want to copy data everywhere in the world and having this approach. So it really depends on what you want to achieve. In the case of Scilife, you're completely following what should be done for this kind of use cases. And it's always about a discussion. I've seen situations where people were overestimating what they need to do, and make it simple is important also, simple and efficient. And other case also we ask and say, okay, what happens if you didn't put a backup system? So it's really part of the discussion, and that's what I really like. It's continuously improving, raising the bar for everyone. So
okay,
like it.
All right. Another interesting question that I see from attendees. I know that this is asked often, right? Do Amazon AWS employees have access to our data?
No.
Can you explain a little bit about that? So how
right away? No, because we first customer we are following Amazon principle, which is being the world most customer obsessed company, and customer are using the platform, and the data is very important, very private, and we don't know what they do on the platform. We know they are using storage or compute this amount, but what they do with it, we have no idea. So there's no way for AWS employees to access this data, except if the customer by itself give us access through the IAM console to the identity and access management, giving access to someone from AWS. And even in this case, we will say, really, we need a contract, we need to make it clear. So it happens for like professional services, so people that can come and help you, consultant, let's say, help you build your solution or build your AWS ecosystem. But it's very controlled in this way. But like we don't know what you're doing with the data. We don't touch it, yeah, that's part of why the overall aspect is part of the security. Why we should know what you do with the data? There's no good reason for that. So obviously, we're not touching this information at all.
Okay, then a thing that I definitely think our attendees here are very interested about is GXP, right? According to or GMP, according to the regulation that they need to comply to, how is Amazon AWS compliant somehow with GXP? How does that work? Right.
Yeah. So GXP is obviously one of the big topic in this domain. As you know, GXP is not a certification. It's not a security checklist to say you need to do that. It's a principle. It's do whatever is needed to protect the patient's data and making sure scientifically it's relevant, medically it's relevant. So there's no certification to be GXP compliant, but AWS allows you to be GXP compliant. We have hundreds of customers in this space, big pharmas and biotechs and startups, any type of customer that are running the GXP workloads on AWS. The way you do it is by doing a classical architecture definition, checking that you have everything you need to do. We have a white paper, in fact, for explaining the customer how to get the documentation they need to be GXP compliant. It's on the ISO 901 on the QMS system. So we have specific elements there. You can go to the service called Artifact, which is in the AWS console, where you can look at all the reports and all the certificates, and we have specific document for that.
For the attendees, we will create a recap page, and we will put those links in that recap page. So don't worry if you want to know where
I'll go too fast.
right? We will provide those links as we go. We will create that and
send
it to you.
Yeah. Okay. And we have partners also working in this space. So we have people internally that can help with, like me, having industry knowledge and done that in past years that can help. We have also partners that are providing consulting or even technology solution to help you achieve your GXP compliance. So it's completely feasible. And I guess I can turn back to you because you are using AWS and you're in this space. How you manage the GXP in Scilife?
Yeah, so how do we do it? Basically through a GAMP 5 validation, right? The GAMP 5 validation process is something that is the whole basis of our solution. We do a full GAMP 5 validation on our end of each release that we do. Of course, there is a difference between a minor, a medium, or a major release according to the documentation that we develop and execute. But in the end, everybody is using the same application in production as customers are onboarded, and then their data is separate, but still the application layer for all the customers is the same. So what we do is a full GAMP 5 validation when we go live with a specific version of a module. And that GAMP 5 validation includes the whole thing. So from URSs, user requirements, functional specs, design specs, config specs, we execute performance qualification tests. We have the whole traceability matrix. Risk assessment is done, obviously, on the URSs. And there is a validation plan and a validation report at the end to make sure that the system is ready for use in production. Once that's completely drafted, executed, and signed off by us, This is the whole package is what's offered to our customers, which they can use as a pre-validation on their end. So of course, we cannot fully validate the solution before you go live with it on our end somehow when we develop it. But it all depends. Again, we have here the three layers, right? One thing is what you provide within Amazon. The other thing is what we provide as a tool, as a life sciences platform. We validate it internally, and then you can use that according to your use case. You need to do the last validation steps on your end to say, this is the tool that I'm acquiring out of the box. It does this. This is how I'm going to configure it according to my needs and how I'm going to use it. So that last part is, of course, the responsibility of our own customers, but essentially the whole validation documentation package that we provide, which is typically a lot of work and very costly. It takes away 95% of the validation efforts for our customers. It doesn't make sense, right? To provide a non-validated tool, which is the same identical tool for everybody, and then just tell the customer, you validated yourself and you validated yourself. They would essentially be generating very, very similar documentation according to the features in there. So it doesn't make sense to do it that way. That's why we go very, very far into providing the full validation package from us, and providing a very complete validation documentation package that they can base their last validation steps and checklists on. So that's how we make sure that the tool itself complies with their GXP requirements.
And if you can add on this, and you explain it very well, and I think there's a lot of automation behind that. So there's a lot of things we can do automatically. There's a lot of documentation or testing we can do. In the past life, we needed to test everything because everything was like new server, new environment, everything would need to be tested. This can be done automatically. So infrastructure as code, the cloud technologies help you to do that, and also how you build your business case. And as you say, if you have a lot of customers and you're providing this solution on quality management systems, so you expect to be GXP compliant, they're using for GXP compliant. So retesting everything for everyone doesn't make sense. So you need to automatize this. That's what I'm supporting the customer in the transformation in their culture, is to say, we want to embed the compliance and security not as a gatekeeper, say, hey guys, you've done the amazing work, now let's validate, but put validation part of the objective. It's a feature for the customer. And as we are innovating, and as you perfectly said, inside if you're creating new modules, new versions of the modules, you need to keep up with this, and you don't redo everything all the time again. And that's very important. That's also how we build the services in AWS. In fact, we make sure that we deliver to the customer what they expect, GXP, but same thing if you want Kubernetes environment, storage, or we build this way. So the way we test and before deploying, we test everything, all use case, to see how it goes, and it's part of a very deep engineering approach to it to make sure it happens. And I see that you have the same approach there. It's what's the value for the customer is not GXP is an obligation, it's a practice also, and so the next step is what you do with it and how you make value out of it. So. Absolutely,
and that's also what we do. One thing is that's also one of the topics that we see when customers or potential customers are investigating the buy versus build, right? Question. Should we build it ourselves or should we buy this off-the-shelf solution? Because they think if we build it ourselves, it's just what's the development cost, right? We develop it once, done. And what's the validation cost? I validated it once, I'm done, and I don't have to pay this SaaS solution year after year constantly, right? So after X amount of time, there is this net benefit of not acquiring this, but building it ourselves. The issue here is that typically, according to business needs and also regulation differences or changes, it's a continuous development requirement that you will see. And also the validation part is crazy expensive and time consuming, right? So the way we do it is that if there's a bug fix, if we have a change control in place in which we solve the bug, we test the bug, and we release it very fast to production. If there's new features, we do it in a medium or in a major release. So it's a continuous improvement cycle with the compliance requirements on top of that. If you look at other commercial applications that are sold in a non-regulatory space, you see this continuous deployment strategy in which literally the developer makes a change in the code, solves something, adds a feature, it goes through a testing pipeline, and if everything is green, it hits production the same day, right? At the same moment almost. That's something that we can never achieve because there's this requirement of signing off on documentation by different people before you can actually deploy it to production. So what we do is we have this continuous deployment up to the test server internally for us. There we execute our PQTs. We make sure that everything is correct on our side. Then we deploy it to the validation environment of our customers. Customers then have, according to contract, 60 days time to verify the new release according to the change list, according to the tests that they want to do on their end to make sure everything is okay. After 60 days, the module goes live for all customers at the same time. This is how we can keep a SaaS solution validated in a regulated space, constantly improving it, and it's very cost effectively because you do not pay for this validation because it's integrated in the price, it's included in the price, and it's much more efficient than trying to do this internally, creating this new version, having to validate that, upgrading, all that stuff, right? So that's something. If you're thinking about building versus buying, try to think how often a release might be required and how you need to revalidate that. Again, by people that IT people are typically there to make sure infrastructures keep running, not to build critical tools with everything around it and validate them and create new releases, right? If you're a very big company, it might be the case, but normally, it's not. So
I have a question. I have a question on that. How often do you have new releases on Scilife?
Yeah, so we have now 12 modules. We do 1 to 3 new releases per module per year, because there are always improvements that we keep doing. And we're also adding now 2 new modules according to our roadmap. And of course, on the roadmap, we have more modules for next year. So yeah, if you count an average of 2 new releases per module, and then the new modules that we develop, it's about 25 releases per year. So that's almost 2 releases per month, right? So our main goal as a SaaS provider is to really become world-class into developing the needs of the market in a very, very fast, then provide them to the QA department for validation, improve the validation process constantly to make it as efficient and short and well documented as possible, and then deploy to deployments are all automated, deploy immediately to the val environment, and there the 60 days start counting. It was 30 days in the past. Larger customers typically said, Philip, 30 days is not enough. We have a lot of stuff on our plate. Give us more time. So we increase it to 60 days. Those 60 days are non-negotiable. We have to wait for 60 days. In a commercial environment where we can just push whenever we want, if it's well tested, it hits production and you have your new feature, people are happy because it constantly improves. Here we have this obstacle requirement of no. If you want the feature now, we have to develop it, validate it, give you 60 days time to do the validation on your end, and then it hits production, right? It's a drawback, but it's still quite fast, right?
Yeah, if you compare to classical life cycle that we can see in this space, having 25 new release on a year, it's something most of the, let's say, legacy solutions that you can have on premises won't achieve, because just changing a database or updating a version can take a 1 year or 2 years project alone. So it's a very important element. And I saw a question in the chat from the attendees. And it's very interesting, how you manage the requests from different customers about your modules and your solution.
Yeah, that's a good question. We have this whole feature request process in place because from day one, we had a very lean approach to software development. We did not want to build something that we came up with, that we make up, in order to just build whatever we think the market needs, right? So we came out with a very thin version 1.0, and then went to market pretty fast with something that was not it didn't have many features, but it solved a very specific problem with document control and the trainings module, events and kappas, and change control. We had 5 modules we came out with, but with a very relatively simple version. And then the strategy is always to through our customer success team, we constantly, and through our ticketing system, we constantly get requests from customers. Hey, this would be a nice feature. I'm missing this. I would improve that. So I think now we're constantly managing that. I think we have 60 new feature requests per week, which are going through a process in which internally the customer success team with the product team talks about each and every feature request and decides, does this make sense for all the customers as a whole? Because it needs to make sense for everybody. It cannot be features very specific to one customer use case. Then we have to say no. But if it's a very important feature to that customer, we can even decide to implement it and make it configurable in such a way that you have it off by default and you can turn it on if there is some other customer in the future that also needs it. But by default, we go through the feature requests, we decide when are we going, if we're going to do it, if yes, when, in which module version people can expect it, and then we plan it in our product roadmap. So that's how we go through the whole process in a systematized way, because it really leads our product development roadmap, right? That's the
as we say as we say, it's feedback is a gift. So having the discussion with the customer is very important, and it's important at this moment.
They see so much more than our team and our partners together, right? I mean, there are so many more people looking and using the application. It makes total sense, right? So quick tech check, quick time check, Patrick. We only have a few minutes or 2 minutes left, right? So maybe just to wrap up, I think we had a very interesting chat. I really hope it was useful for attendees. Just to finish, is there anything else that you might think is important to mention from AWS, from security, data integrity that we haven't discussed, that I didn't ask? Anything that comes up?
Yeah, just to say that first, thank you for inviting me and having me here. In this space, we've seen with the pandemic the need exploded, and being fast innovation and doing at the same time the security, the compliance elements is very important. So really see, as you shown perfectly with Scilife, having this capacity to innovate and keep track and keep up with the speed that we need there is important. And regulated space is not a problem. It's in fact a way to protect better what we do, how we do with the patient, and think about this. So I think it's a very interesting topic, and I hope we convey this passion here. Yeah, and in the follow-up, so you will receive a lot of elements to deep dive and make sure to discuss with us and Scilife about this. And yeah, happy to continue on this. And one thing that I really want to see, because I really like what you say, but what is the most surprising thing you have seen from a customer in this space? Because we talk about regulation, security, but I'm sure you've been exposed to requests that were surprising. So.
Yeah, so what we like the most about what we offer is that we're talking to hugely innovative companies, right? We're in the pharma or life sciences as a whole, but pharma companies are doing crazy, incredible stuff. Definitely during the pandemic, we have customers that are working on COVID solutions of different types. So that's incredible. We have in the medical device space, we have crazy solutions that are being developed. One that I can think of is, for example, for surgeons when they are basically operating and removing a tumor. During the cutting, the smoke is analyzed to make sure that the surgeon knows, am I cutting still tumor cells or am I cutting healthy tissue, right? To know how far to cut. I mean, these are things that typically during sales calls, our sales team and also myself like to know, what are you guys working on? And then we think, wow, this is so cool, because we're supporting them to do those very ambitious projects where the tool that supports to do them from a quality and a process perspective. So yeah, it's very exciting to be in this space and to provide what we provide. So that's definitely the case. All right, so yeah, we're 2 minutes over time. I would like to thank all the participants for attending. Great questions. Thank you, Patrick, for being here. I think it was very, very useful and very interesting chat. So yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Talk to you soon. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Scilife.